Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I believe that you're muted. We can't hear what you're saying.
Sorry about that. No, I was just saying hello to everyone. Good morning. And just requesting if you can, someone on the other side can let me know when we're motions, if they're unanimous. Won't be able to, last week I wasn't able to see all the hands going up at once. So if you can just let me know if anyone is, doesn't have their hand up when we're taking a motion.
I can do that, Michael.
Okay, thank you.
And just for the morning session, the only deferral request from applicants or that have to be deferred is item 13.
What about number 3?
I just meant from applicants, if there's staff ones.
Okay, should we I'll just do those in the normal course, or you want me to deal with those first?
Number 13 for sure, just in case there are people waiting, we can get rid of.
Okay. Yeah, I think this speaker's best. Yeah, number 13 does have one additional speaker, Leslie Goldberg of 100 Industry. Okay, good.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we are ready to go. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, good morning, everyone. During the declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and in-person attendance limitations. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone, or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Panel members participating today are Donald Taylor, Mishi McCloskey, Sophia Ruddick, and Stan Kumorik. I am Michael Clark, and I'm the panel chair, and I'm also participating via video link today. Registered participants will be participating by audio only. We also ask that you mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaws that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties, create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because the Committee of Adjustment and in the event of an appeal, the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to their Toronto local appeal body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the local planning appeal tribunal, LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure will be as follows. I will call each item in the order listed in the agenda. And we will deal with the deferral issue at the outset to let those people get off the line and get on with their days. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with a presentation if desired. Where the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or then take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment, or someone will comment, when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent. Okay, so when addressing the committee, please also clearly state your name and address at the outset, especially in the virtual world. It's important that we know for the minutes and clarify exactly who's speaking. And please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent proceeds first and makes their presentation to the committee. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals made at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application of being substantially revised in order to ensure that the application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that were raised by the speakers, not to introduce new information at that point. And that will then mark the end of the discussion, and the matter is then taken into the committee for a decision. I believe we have the minutes of the last meeting to confirm as a bit of housekeeping. I believe that was January the 27th. Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we need a motion from the members.
Okay. I thought maybe I'd been talking for the last 5 minutes and not been online. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last hearing?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the last hearing. Nishi?
Okay, thank you. And also, yeah, please don't today, because I can't necessarily have all the screens, so just don't put up your hand if you want to speak. Just maybe just go right in, because I may not be able to see your hand up. Thank you, Mishi. Seconder for that motion.
Sophia seconds.
Thank you, Sophia. All in favor? Okay, I assume it's unanimous. Okay, we're going to deal with one deferral request. This is a request of the applicant's request. Item number 13, we'll deal with that one first to get it off the agenda. Item number 13, 110 in Industry Street. Okay, I don't have it up on the screen. Perhaps you can get the notice up on the screen. I don't know who is it, who the staff member is it today working away in the council chamber. I just got kicked off. Okay, so the applicant, I believe on this application is Marco Vieira, and we have Leslie Goldberg on the line as well in this application. Thank you for getting that up on the screen. Marco?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Marco Vieira. I'm the agent and the designer for this application.
Yeah, this is to construct an outdoor storage facility. And
we're asking for a deferral just to give us a chance to go into more detail with the actual proposed use with the councillor and planning as well as at the request.
Okay, and perhaps also during that, if you can, check the file, see which neighbors have, expressed interest in this, and perhaps reach out to them as well, so they're not caught by surprise when the matter will be put back on. Obviously, it'll be a re-notification and you'll be back at another day after you've done that further consultation.
Yes, and I believe the councillor may want to engage a community as well, go through in details what the proposal is. We were thinking more of a temporary use.
Yeah, we do have a couple letters of opposition. And what's the proposed storage? Just was curious. What's proposed to be stored there? Cars or? No,
it's just some construction equipment, scaffolding, outdoor use for construction. There's no building on the site. Okay. But this may be more of a 5-year term, but we might have to change the nature of the application. Okay, so anyway, you'll be coming back. So let's just check in with the other party on the line. I think it's a next door neighbor, Leslie Goldberg, just to weigh in on the issue of the matters being deferred. Leslie Goldberg on the line?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee members. Can you hear me?
Yes. So the good news is we're not proceeding with this today. The applicant, I don't know if you've met or know Mr. Vieira, who's the agent for the applicant. That will be, they wish to make changes and to clarify the use with the councillor and perhaps with the adjacent neighbors. And I guess you're the one most directly affected, being next door.
Right. I represent both the owner of the building itself, and I'm also represent the tenant that's within the building. So I actually wear 2 hats. I'm co-owner with somebody else on the property. Do you want to hear what I have
No,
to say now?
no, we're just only if you had any issue with respect to the adjournment, which I'm sure there's really nothing.
I do. I have a major issue because it perpetuates the problem that's been going on for a number of years. And with an adjournment or a deferral, it just delays it even further. And we're not dealing with the matter.
Okay, so this is something that's already going on?
Yes, this has been going on for a couple of years already.
Okay, so I would certainly agree with you when it's an existing condition to remove something or stop doing something. Obviously, a deferral is the benefit of the applicant. So perhaps we have to, make sure that this matter doesn't get drawn on. I don't know if the committee members would agree that this should be brought back on a relatively short order due to the fact that it's being done ahead of approvals. Thank you for advising me of that, Mr. Goldberg.
You're welcome, Mr. Clark.
Hey, committee members, any comments? Would anyone like to weigh in on that? And perhaps we can go back to Mr. Vieira and advise how quickly he can get this matter back on, or perhaps staff can assign a specific date if that's appropriate. Mr. Vieira?
Morning, Mr. Chair.
I didn't realize this is an ongoing situation, so obviously that's
Yeah, it is to my
more
understanding that
urgency.
part of the site has been rented out and had been used for the storage of materials, which is not allowed under the bylaw. And that's why we wanted to change the nature of the proposal if it's going to be able to put a building in there where things are inside, or if that is going to be removed off site.
Okay, well,
That's why we
given
wanted
that
to
your
council.
given that your client is already doing what he's asking permission to do, either for 5 years or permanently, and he's already doing it, perhaps this should be brought back on to a specific date. And then how much time do you figure you'll need to clarify, meet with the counselor? I believe is it Councilor Nunziata? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. We've reached out to the office to request a time for meeting and then to possibly set up a community meeting. We don't know what the timeline
Yeah.
for that is from the office yet, but
Yes.
I would say within 3 months. I think that could give us something to prepare back before the meeting in that
Okay.
time.
That seems reasonable, I guess. So yeah, the counselor, I'm reading her letter, is in favor of the deferral, and she wishes to hold a community meeting to discuss the proposal. Okay, so again, but I assume she would agree that, and as Mr. Goldberg had advised, it's already ongoing. Let's make sure this is. Madam Secretary Treasurer, can we put this on a specific date or just no later than 3 months, or?
Yeah, the motion can be for a maximum of 3 months, and then if the applicant doesn't reach out to us, then we can put it before the committee to close the file.
Okay. Mr. Vieira, that's acceptable to you, your client?
It is, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Committee members, any other comments, or is someone ready to make a motion to that effect? Or if you feel it's reasonable, I guess.
Go ahead, Stan. Yeah, I feel
I don't see
comfortable to propose a motion for deferral for no longer than 3 months, and so that the applicant can process with the counselor and the community.
Okay, thank you, Stan. A seconder for that motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Okay, the matter is deferred for a maximum of 3 months. Thank you, Mr. Vieira. Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Okay, so we can now go back up to the top of the agenda and deal with item number 1. I believe you only have one speaker, the agent on that application, 71 Dixon Road. It's an application to construct a second-story west side addition above the one-story portion of the dwelling. Urban Forestry is requesting condition number 2, and all we have is a previous decision from February 2002. And the speaker for this application is only one speaker, Gil DuPont, the owner.
Correct. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Gil DuPont from 71 Dixon Road.
Okay, I don't believe we need a presentation from you on this, and it looks like there's no comment by city departments other than Urban Forestry. I assume Urban Forestry condition is acceptable. We don't have any comments from area neighbors with concerns or an opposition, and no comment from other city departments. Members, do you have any questions for the homeowner applicant, or is someone ready for a motion? Unless Mr. DePonte, there's anything you'd like to bring to our attention.
No, not really.
Okay. Someone have any questions or is someone ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, Don Taylor, here to make a motion.
Thank you.
I find the two variances to be in keeping with the four tests. I note that both variances reflect the existing situation as it applies to the existing single-story structure on the property. So I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 2.
Thank you, sir. A seconder for that motion. Again, I can't see everyone's screen.
Sorry, Stan, I'll second it.
Okay, yours was the screen I couldn't see. Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Unanimous.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. DePonte. Next application is
very
item number 2, 3032 Weston Road. And if we can get those applications on the screen as we go through them, and it's to maintain the existing driveway. There are 3 variances. We have some supporting material, a map, and other materials submitted. And we have in the additional materials, we have a ravine and natural feature protection having advised that there's no condition, and transportation similarly advising there's no condition. And that's all we have on this application. The speaker is John DeBarros.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the panel. The reason for this amendment, would you like to hear the reasoning?
I don't know if anyone want to hear why they need to maintain this existing driveway triggering these 3 variances. How did this as a maintained situation? Perhaps you can just explain that. This is not something that's proposed. It's something that's been existing for some time. Why are we here?
Years.
Okay, so why are we here?
Well, house was purchased in '89, house built in '86. The builders built the driveways that way. It's never been changed in any form. I've sent the original listing to show the property when it was purchased.
Right.
A neighbor across the street did actually change their driveway, and they expanded it to park a tractor trailer, and that's what sparked all this. So when the city inspector came, they basically sent summons to all the properties, and all the properties from Shepherd down have the same hammerhead style driveway. And it's such a busy stretch of road, and the reason for maintaining it was my parents are 75 and 70, and they've lived there all their lives. That was the main concern about buying the house originally. They fell in love with it, but their concern was getting out of the driveway, and because of that, they figured it was safe enough to do so.
Yes.
To change that would affect their safety, really, because to back up onto Weston Road, if anyone's been on that road, it's like a freeway. I don't think it's wise, and
it's probably also a lot busier than it was 30-something years ago.
Exactly.
Okay, so thank you for that explanation. Seems perfect. I guess they're going to have to clean it up, and all those people will have to come here to have it legalized. And we saw in the additional materials, there's no concern from transportation department. And thank you for your submission as well, showing your map and other materials. Committee members, anyone have any questions for the agent? Mr. DeBarros, or actually, I believe he is the owner. He's the co-owner.
Son.
Okay. If no one has any questions, if someone's ready to weigh in with a motion.
I'm Sophia, ready to weigh in. Motion to approve this application, find it to be minor in nature and consistent with the 4 tests.
Thank you very much, Ms. Reddick. Seconder for that motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Assume it's unanimous.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 3, 6 First Street. We have a revised notice sheet and revised waiver, revised plans, highlighted in yellow. This is to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There were 6, now 5 variances. They've all been revised. And very surprising, I want to hear from the agent on that. Interestingly, the major, which is normally the major, the floor space index has been eliminated from 0.6 to 0.89. So I want to know how he's accomplished that. It also didn't give actually the square meters for those 2 numbers, but that variance has been eliminated. So we now have 5 variances, and they've all been reduced. They're shown highlighted. And in addition to that, on this application, we have item 16 and 16A Lakeshore Drive is in opposition, and we have a cover letter and photos submitted by the agent. The agent on this application is Dave Eagleman. He is the only speaker registered to speak. Mr. Eagleman, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, there's a request from planning to defer to allow staff to review.
Yes, thanks for pointing that out. As you pointed out last hearing, there was one. You pointed that out after we had heard from it. So thank you for doing that. Mr. Eagleman, you're aware, thank you for the member pointing that out, that there is a request on our memo from planning for purpose number 2, which I believe means that they haven't had a chance to review the revisions. Correct? Can you fill us in on, as a reputable agent who appears before us, is this what community planning wanted? Have they had a chance to see it? Do they need to have a chance to see it?
Yeah, so good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. David Eagleman, 900 the East Mall. So through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to note that we have consulted with community planning staff regarding this application. And as you can see from the revised plans and revised variances, that we have made a number of revisions to the proposal and the requested variances in an attempt to address the concerns raised by planning staff through our discussions. Despite the significant revisions that we have made, planning staff are recommending deferral of this application to allow for additional time to respectfully disagree with planning staff's recommendation. And I will note that the revised plans and zoning waiver were provided to planning staff for their review and comment prior to the material submission deadline for this application. So through you, Mr. Chair, if you would like me to, before I provide a presentation, publicly amend the notice of hearing if it's required.
Well, it's as shown in our materials, the highlighted one showing the elimination of variance 1 and the reduction of the other variances. That is already before us. You're not telling me there's further changes, are you?
No, I just wanted to make sure that the committee clearly understands the changes.
Well, yeah, they can, I think, pretty well figure it out from what's on the screen, right?
Understood.
What the changes you've made, and those were the question, why, to have a delay. I don't know how long is needed to review this, but is this in line with what community planning wanted you to do? Like I pointed out in my introduction, it's quite unusual to see the floor space index variance eliminated when it was more or less a third over, 0.3 times over at 0.89, whereas 0.6. How did you do that and still be before us to build this new dwelling?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it was a result of, just the overall revisions that we have made, reducing the height, reducing or increasing or improving the front yard setback, which has effectively cut off a portion of the dwelling at the front. So all the revisions combined have resulted in an overall reduction to the FSI.
Okay, I'm just saying it's quite unusual to eliminate the FSI variance altogether rather than just improve upon it. But that's great. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Eagleman? He's the only speaker. Or
through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I could provide would the committee like a presentation of the application?
Committee members?
I would make the motion for the deferral, so I'm supporting planning's request. So I don't know if you want to Cedar, we're dealing with the deferral first. I'm prepared to make a motion to defer the matter as per planning's request to allow them an opportunity to review the application. As
I
revised.
just have a question, if I may, before we get to a motion, may I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Sure.
The changes, the most recent revisions, are they reflected on drawings that were submitted?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, there is a revised set of plans that should be within the committee's package. They were submitted to the committee along with the revised variances prior to the submission deadline as well.
Yeah, they're pretty substantial changes that he's like eliminating the FSI is quite something. So we do have those revised plans and revised waiver, and I assume those did come in, as you just mentioned, prior to the deadline.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so any other questions, or we should deal with Ms. Ruddick has a motion, has requested the motion to defer, to deal with that at the outset. So if you'd like to explain, or I guess if you've already just given you another opportunity to explain why you don't want to have it deferred, if you'd like to just formally, before we see if anyone has any questions or anyone's ready to second that motion.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I would just like to note that, as I have mentioned, we did submit these materials prior to the submission deadline. I personally provided these revised plans and variances to planning staff well in advance of the hearing date today. So I don't believe it is necessary or required to further delay this process to allow for planning staff to further review the application, especially considering that I'm aware of their concerns that they've had with the proposal, and we've taken those concerns into consideration and have made revisions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions for Mr. Eagleman before before we see if we have a seconder on that motion? Okay, so Ms. Ruddick's motion is to defer in accordance with community planning's request. You have a seconder for that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Taylor. I would agree to deferral in this case because I'm concerned about variance 4, which is more than a 50% increase for the front exterior main wall. So I think it's, I would like the community planning department to have an opportunity to comment on that, sign off on it, whatever they choose to do. So I would second the motion for deferral.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Do you have, all in favor? I don't see if Stan has his hand up or not. I'm opposed to the deferral. Stan, do you have your hand up or down? Doesn't really matter. It
Doesn't
carries
matter.
3-2.
Yeah.
Oh, 3-2 or 4-1?
Let's go.
3-2.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Eagleman, the matter is deferred. We'll see you back here again. Thank you. Item number 4 is 11 BEAUCOURT Road. This is for a 2-story addition above the existing dwelling. There are 4 variances. Planning has a condition of approval to have it constructed as illustrated in the elevation roof plans as it relates to the roof design. We have a letter addressing the neighbors from the applicant. We have 7 letters of opposition. And in the additional materials, Councillor Grimes has weighed in. He also would like it to be in accordance with planning, as he often does. He concurs that the approval of the roof design should be a condition. And we have another objection letter from 6 Minstrel Drive. We have a number of speakers registered on this application. We have Antonella Wild, the agent, and then we have various neighbors from 5, 12, 7, 15, and 13 Beaumont in that order, and 10 Beaumont in that order.
Sorry, through
so
you.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. We tried to reach the neighbors at 5, 12, and 10 BEAUCOURT, but we were unable to reach them. So I don't think they'll be participating today.
Okay, so we still have 7, 15, and 13.
Yes, that's
okay,
correct.
so you can deal with the as the speakers go. So we do have less speakers. I was going to say with so many speakers, 6 or 7, you know, in person, we would say people usually appoint a spokesperson, or they don't all decide they want to speak. We do have now a more reasonable number. But again, if someone wants to take the lead, we do have the letters that members have gone through. Okay, so let's start off. And oh yes, so in this application we have, I indicated what we got on the additional materials. And so that's it. Let's go to Antonella Wild, the agent, for a presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My clients, Michael and Pamela, purchased this property with the intent to build an addition to the existing bungalow. They have always loved the area and look forward to raising their young family here. They're requesting variances which we believe are necessary to construct a home that is both in keeping with the trends in the area and most specifically on the street. Through many examples of past approvals, we also believe the proposal is desirable for this specific site, and the variances are minor in nature. The first variance is for FSI. You'll see from my client's letter to his neighbors, he's requesting less than that of 6 previous applications. 28 BEAUCOURT should have been included at 0.61 FSI. The second variance for side yard setback is a result of building over existing non-conforming setbacks. Similar approval was granted to 7 and 12 BEAUCOURT Road. In addition, 10 BEAUCOURT Road was granted 0.77 meters for a new build. I received a call from Daniel Kolominski of Community Planning. He had no objection to the 3rd floor, as you see in his report, as the build form is identical to 8 and 10 BEAUCOURT in that they include fake dormers. 3 of the 34 homes on the street have 3rd floor windows and or dormers. The only difference here is the addition of habitable space in the attic. Although more than 50% of the roof is flat, the roof is sloped to the street on the front and the rear and presents as a sloped roof. The proposed height is only 0.24 meters over the allowable to a roof peak. This variance is numerical in nature and appears greater than necessary due to math only. In fact, for height variance number 8 BEAUCOURT was granted 9.8 meters to the roof peak. As noted by Community Planning in the report, the design presents as 2-story, as I mentioned, with dormers, in keeping with the prevailing character of the pitched roofs in the area. I've noted many past approvals to illustrate a trend in development, understanding that you will assess this application on its own merits, as did Community Planning and the councillor. We understand the need to tie the approval to the roof plan, as the 3rd floor is a half-story, not a full-story addition. I look forward to hearing the speakers' presentations, and I hope to help alleviate their concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Wild. Any questions for the agent before we move on to the neighbors? Okay, if none, next neighbor is the person from 5 is not present, I believe, right?
Yes, 5 and
Who's the
12.
next on the list? Okay, so we have number 7. I guess that's one property over, or is there a 9? We'll hear from that neighbor. Either Mr. or Mrs. Vecchio.
Hi, Mr. Chairman and the committee members. I understand from what was presented.
Sorry, you're Giovanna Vecchio?
I'm Giovanni.
Okay.
I'm
And
7
are
BEAUCOURT.
you right next door? There is a
No,
line
we're
in between.
No, there's a dwelling in between on the north side.
Okay, go ahead. Let us know what your concerns are.
Well, I totally understand what the agent described. My main concern is the precedent that this may set with regards to 3 stories. I appreciate the sloping of the roofs, but there is a flat roof, and I'm just concerned that in the future, if a future developer wants to press or push the boundaries of a full flat roof, that's what my concern is, right? For a full 3-story. So it's, as long as the committee understands that, for future development that, there won't be a full a flat roof for a 3rd story, then I'm okay with it. But it's I'm concerned about the precedents that may cause in the future, because with developers, it's just a loophole. They're going to keep pushing and pushing, right?
Well, sure, I will hear what the applicant has to say, but try to give you some reassurance that really every application is looked at its own merits. And so if someone shows up in the future, just like this applicant was able to, and you can see it reflected in the planning report, the reason why they're supportive is that the third floor is hidden in the roof line anyway, in the attic space. So if someone tries to say, oh, look, they got something, obviously it would be up to you or the other neighbors to point out, hey, that one was different. So every application is reported on its merit. Sometimes you see a very high FSI or GFA number and you wonder something's going on, and then you realize because it's more out of the ground, the basement counts, and that's why you're looking at a bigger number. So you in the future, you and community planning will look beyond just the actual numbers, and they won't hopefully not use this as a precedent for something that is not a precedent. If someone comes and wants to have the same buried in the roof line, well, then they can use it as a precedent. You would agree with that. So anyway, well, sorry for interrupting. Just wanted to try to give you some assurance or some alleviate some of your concerns about that. Every case is looked at on its own merits.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. One more item. Also, a concern about privacy as well, as the reading nook has a window facing the north side that can look into our backyards. When I've did my house, the committee requested a private privacy screen, which I did, and I'm not sure what they can do here for that matter. But they also have a balcony that looks out, a Juliet balcony on the third floor, but it just looks out directly east. But there is a north-facing window on the reading nook. So
okay, we'll let the applicant respond to that in his rebuttal. Okay. Anything else, or I'll just see.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, committee, and Mr. Chairman as well. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the neighbor, for Mr. Vecchio, before we move on to the next speaker? Okay, so in that case, we'll move on to Mark Gardner at number 15, and he's also one house over on the other side. Mr. Gardner, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee. It's Mark Gardner. I'm at 15 BEAUCOURT. I had noted originally that the applicant is not really in conformity with the neighborhood street of bungalows and two-stories homes. It's also being pointed out that that there was a variance of 9.8 on the opposite side or the west side of the street, but that's the facade. What has come to my attention now, and I just received this notice, I think as many of the people on the street did, either the 2nd, 3rd of February, giving very little time to perhaps get a hold of a planner who could act on our part. I mean, as we as laymen don't have the expertise of the Santa Luces. So to me, this is really on the part of the applicant, it's really a request to build a 3-story for the purpose of living space on the 3rd floor. And it's not minor, and it's really a violation of the purpose and the spirit of the sections that are being noted in the application. It also appears to me that where there has been a variance that has been allowed in the past, it's not necessarily common knowledge on the street that that variance has been noted. And again, I have to reiterate that it's a facade. It's not allowing living space on that 3rd floor. What concerns me as someone on a fixed income, that I'm going to get shut out of this street because it has an element of blockbusting, where developers will come in now that they see that they can get a 3rd floor living area, and it's always cheaper to build up, but you can increase the value of that home. And I think that, you know, the Santa Luces, with all deference to them, they've had a year to look at this. And they have a planner, and they are developers, and they certainly have a level of sophistication that we don't. So it very much seems to me that this should be denied on that basis. Thanks very much for listening to me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gardner. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Gardner before we move on to the next speaker? Okay, then the next speaker is the neighbor right next door, 13 Beaucourt, Linda or Rick Grohan.
Hi, hi, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm just going to read a short statement from my husband, Rick, and I. Surely the issue here is not one of relative height or false dormers, not how the size and appearance of this proposed 3-story house compares to that of the existing 2-story houses on the street. Instead, the real issue is that those existing houses, regardless of size and appearance, all conform to the street's 2-story zoning bylaw. Their dormers are false for a reason. Whatever appearance they may give, there is in fact no 3rd story because a 3rd story is illegal under the current bylaw. The applicant is arguing that since 3 of the houses on Beaucourt appear to have a 3rd story, he suddenly has the right to build an actual 3rd story. Of course, by turning appearance into reality, his 3-story proposal is a clear violation of the bylaw. Nor, as he claims, is it remotely deceiving that the committee has classified his proposal as a 3-story house. No matter how the additional story is built into the roof line, it is classified as a 3-story house because it is a 3-story house. Consequently, what the applicant is requesting is not a minor variance to or adjustment of the bylaw, but is full repeal. He essentially wants to rezone the entire street to his own preference and for his own benefit. I can fully understand why this owner, who is also a builder, would wish to change the bylaw from 2 to 3 stories. I'm sure the financial incentive is large, and he has every right to try to do so, but he should be obliged to follow the proper channels, to lobby the relevant politicians and appeal to the relevant council. He should not be allowed to sneak a major and de facto change in the bylaw through the back door of the Committee of Adjustment, whose job it is to interpret existing laws, not to pass new ones. If his proposal is granted, this would be the first 3-story house on the street, but it assuredly would not be the last. The precedent would be set, the genie would be out of the bottle, and other 3-story structures just a bit larger and a bit larger still will quickly follow, not only on this street, but in the neighborhood beyond, making a mockery of the 2-story bylaw. My objection here isn't personal. I'm sure Michael and his family are splendid people who would be welcome additions to the street. But this 3-story proposal is not welcome for the simple reason that under the current law, it is not legal. If he wants to construct a 3-story house on a 2-story street, this owner and builder must first devote the time and put in the work to officially change the zoning. Until then, his 3-story proposal should be rejected out of hand for what it is, an opportunistic attempt to rezone the street and flagrantly undermine both the intent and the purpose of the existing bylaw. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Grohan. Does anyone have any questions, Ms. Grohan, before we move on to the next speaker? Okay, next speaker, last speaker before we go back to the applicant for her rebuttal is either Mr. or Mrs. Midoff at 10 Beaucourt.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that neighbor will not be participating as well. We were unable to reach them.
Okay, so we've heard from everyone who has been on the line. So in that case, we'll go back to Ms. Ferroni-Wild for a rebuttal.
Thank you, Chair. We hope to speak directly to the neighbors like was done, pre-COVID when we had the opportunity to step out into the hall. Unfortunately, no one responded to my client's invitation to call. But as I previously mentioned, the scale and overall massing of the proposal is no different than 8 and 10 Beaucourt. 8 Beaucourt was approved with an overall height of 9.8. When we look at Google Earth, it shows that this roof is essentially flat. Like our proposal, that feature isn't visible from the street. The impact of the height of the flat roof is less than that of 7 BEAUCOURT, which was granted a height to flat roof of 8.1 meters to a full flat roof. The proposed overall area of that flat roof is substantially larger than what we propose. Whereas ours is not visible from the street, the 7 BEAUCOURT presents as a full flat roof. The balcony that the neighbors refer to is required by fire code. Because there's a 3rd-story bedroom, we need a balcony. The balcony is 1 foot deep, which means that in the case of a fire, someone would be able to stand there, close the door behind them, and wait for the ladders to save them. It's not a balcony where people can sit and linger. The north-facing window that was also referred to is on the 2nd floor, and it is set back on the south side, facing north. As was done when I designed and came before the committee in 2013 for 12 BEAUCOURT, we worked closely with community planning and we followed their recommendations. We made changes when requested and we reached an agreement before the hearing. The same was done here. I followed the advice of community planning, knowing that their job is to represent the neighborhood by respecting the general intent of the zoning bylaw. By assessing our specific roof design, imposing the noted condition, they believe that there is no reason to recommend refusal. And I respectfully request approval be tied to the roof design as well. Specifically as to what was said for number 7, I spoke about. Number 15, I just want to say there were a few people mentioning developers and things. This is not a developer. He works to renovate homes, and there is no malice or area of expertise in changing the bylaw for any reason. In fact, it's more expensive to build it this way. But by making it the 2.5 story, the coverage is reduced, the drainage is less impacted, and this is not a house to be flipped. I thank you for listening to me today.
Okay, I just have one question before I see if any of the other members do. You mentioned number 7. That was our first speaker, Mr. Vecchio.
Yes.
So you're telling me that his house is higher than yours? Again, his
no, it's a
concern, I think,
full.
was
Sorry, it's a 2-story flat roof structure with a variance
Right.
to the flat roof height, fully flat roof of 8.1 meters approved. I had wrote the year down, or maybe I didn't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh yes, and I also eave projections were requested for 7 BEAUCOURT. We don't request eave projections as well, just to keep as much respect for adjacent neighbors and drainage.
Okay. So your position is that this does not create the precedent that the neighbors are so concerned with, because it is contained within the roof line, and it is not in reality presents any different than the others.
Absolutely.
So does anyone have any questions at this point for either the agent or any of the neighbors? And if not, then we'll take it into the committee for a decision. So there's any more questions or clarifications required from. So we do have the community planning request for a condition to tie it, construct as illustrated with respect to this roof line. And the applicant is advised that they're content that that be imposed as a condition. I can see everyone except for Mr. Komorak. Someone's just waiting for someone to weigh in. Unless there's any last minute questions for anyone.
Mr. Chair, Taylor, I'll weigh in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm inclined to accept the planning department's observation on this application that the house does present as a 2-story house. So I think, in terms of considering impact, the fact that it presents as a 2-story satisfactorily addresses that impact. I find the variances to be in keeping with the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to the condition of the community planning department that would solidify and enforce the design of the roof.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We have a second for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? I can't see Stan. I assume
I
Stan,
am in
you're
favor this time.
okay. So it is unanimous. The application is approved. Thank you to the neighbors and thank you to the agent,
Thank
Ms.
you very
Wild.
much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Thank you.
Okay. So we can move over to item number 5, which is 35 Emerald Crescent. It's an application to construct a 1-story or addition, a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling, a new rear deck, and a basement walkout. And there were, we have a revised notice. There were 5 variances. There were 6. They eliminated the front yard setback. Planning has provided a report for information. We have forestry looking for variances 2 and 4. 2 letters of opposition and an additional letter of opposition in the additional materials. So we have a total of 3 letters of opposition. Registered to speak on this application is Mehdi Ajvand, the agent, as well as the neighbors at 37 Emerald Crescent and 16 6th Street. So let's go to Mehdi Ajvand.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Nushin Mozaffari. I'm here on behalf of my colleague Mehdi Ajvand from Hyphen Studio. He couldn't make it today, so I'm representing the case.
So you're with Hyphen Studio, the agent.
Yes, and designer.
Okay,
So we
so
need the
perhaps
spelling
does
of
the
your
staff
name.
need the spelling of your name? Perhaps we
Yes.
can get.
It's Nushin, Noushin, and last name Mozaffari, Mozaffari.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't you give us a short presentation? We do have the planning report for information that the members have reviewed. We do have people here with concerns in opposition.
Yeah. Before I explain the variances, I should say that variance number 2 is eliminated. The front setback is the same as existing and it's not a variance. As you mentioned, this is a addition renovation project, not a new build, and many of these variances are a consequence of the existing condition. For variance number 1, we are asking for FSI. Still, the designed house is a very small one for this size of the lot and is very comparable with the other new developments in the area. Variance number 2 is eliminated, and we are asking for side setback on the east side only for the front portion of the house and only for the garage portion in 1 story. The rest of the length and the whole 2nd floor complies with the required side setback, which is 90 centimeter. And for variance number 4 and 5, as the planner mentions in the in their report, it's a technical variance because it's measured from required front setback if this was a new build. The front setback of the proposal is same as existing, and the actual projection of the front porch is only 6 feet, much less than allowed, and the actual projection of the bay window on the 2nd floor is 75 centimeter, which complies with the bylaw. But since the existing front wall is closer to the property line than the required if this was a new build, these 2 items are considered as variance. I think this is a very straightforward application with a very modest proposed house, complying with the character of the neighborhood. And we are seeking your approval here today.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the agent, or if not, we'll go to the two neighbors present. The first,
Mr. Chair, I have a question, Stan Kumar.
Yes.
If I may, I'm a little bit confused about your elimination of variance number 2. You say that you're currently not in compliance with that setback. So how can you eliminate that variance?
We have submitted the revised zoning notice, so the examiner confirms this addition. The fact is, this is a new interpretation of zoning bylaw by the city. The proposed front setback is the same as the existing, and the bylaw says in addition renovation projects, the required setback is the same as existing, and they accept it only just for the front setback. But then the bylaw measures all the projections and encroachments from the minimum required setback, but they don't consider that a specific term for the other elements. For example, for bay window, porch, canopy, everything else, they refer to the required setback as if it was a new build.
Okay, so you have a new planner's review that states you don't need that variance 2. This isn't, you're not doing that through a waiver.
Yes.
Because the planning report states that that is a variance, and that's where I ran into some confusion for me.
No, as the new zoning notice shows, this variance is eliminated.
Because it's existing.
Yes, exactly.
But if it were new, it would be a variance. So
yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, if there's no other questions, let's go to the next door neighbor, Mr. or Mrs. Chiravati. Hello.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hi, my name is Dave Chiravati. Good morning to all. And my wife and I, Maria, have lived here for quite a period of time. In fact, I have been here and next door for close to 75 years now. And so I was actually brought up in 35 Emerald Crescent. And so it's a little bit emotional for me as well, but that's not the point. My dad initially built 3 bungalows here in a row, and all of them were built with the thought and the idea that access to the houses, both the basement and the side door, would be on the east side of each one of the houses. That would enable people to park in their driveway and then go to their side door or go to their backyard and have access that way without having to go onto their neighbor's property or close to their neighbor's property on the west side. The only time that was accessible was usually when people had to deliver coal back in the day and take that coal through the side windows on the west side of the building, because that's where the furnace and stuff was. And then later on, of course, it was oil. We got the site plan from the city in a letter, and in looking at it, there was no indication of any changes on the west side whatsoever, aside from a projected front alteration and also an extension at the back, plus an addition of a deck. Other than that, we had no indication of any other changes. Only when did we get the plan for each floor a couple of days later, and that was only in the last couple of days, did we notice that all of a sudden there was a side door that was going to be projected for the west side. that changes everything completely, because now we take a look at the east side, and apparently they're going right over almost to the property line, which will negate the availability of getting to a side door if there was one on the east side, and getting to their backyard on the east side. Now, in order to access the backyard, they're going to have to park in a driveway and then walk across their whole front yard and then come down a limited access way to their side door and then eventually get past their extended house and past their deck into the backyard. To me, that makes no sense whatsoever in the planning, because had they stayed with the original idea of access to the backyard and side door on the east side of the building, we wouldn't be having this conversation, I don't think, at this particular time. What opens up the possibility of a side door and access on the west side now presents with possibility, and I don't know what the rules and regulations are regarding basement apartments and stuff in this particular area, but it certainly gives the idea that the only access to the basement at that particular time, at this particular time, will be on the west side. There's a limited amount of space, and I believe it's 3 feet or just a little over 3 feet, and that presents other problems as well. For example, if access is accorded to the side door, what is going to be there? Right now, the strip of grass is there between the house and my driveway. In order for that to be a walkway, obviously the grass is going to have to go and a walkway put in there. That then leads to problems having to do with where the eaves trough is going to be coming from the west side. Are they going to be running down onto that little walkway? Is that water going to be then coming over into my driveway from their walkway? The access to that side door means that anybody visiting or going downstairs is going to have to come down that narrow walkway and get to the side door. That means that any deliveries or people visiting or whatever, that's the only way they can get there, other than the fact they would have to go through the front door of 35 Emerald. The space that is being altered is extremely large.
Yes, sir, you're now past 5 minutes. If you can try to wrap up, please.
Okay.
You're allowed 5
I've got
minutes.
some major concerns about the side yard and whatever else that entails regarding water and fencing and people walking up and down my driveway, because it's right next to that small walkway. So for those reasons, I would I would like to again have the opportunity of talking to the people to see if there's some other solution to the problem that I see at this particular time. The people that I've spoken to are very nice, but we have at this particular point decided to disagree on what's being done. So,
okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I just want to point out to you, I was going to ask you if you had some consultation, if your neighbors did show you plans or discuss the project with you. So I assume they did to some extent, but you just mentioned you were only recently aware of the fact that they want to put the side door on the west side, and you're advising that this disrupts the original pattern for the 3 bungalows that your father built, being on the other side.
Exactly.
So
it changes things dramatically.
Okay, and we do just want to point out to members, we do have your letter. It's opposition letter 2 in our bookmarks.
I thank you.
So
once again, before I leave, the people I've spoken to are very nice, and I just wish we have more time to discuss this to see if there's any other solution to the problem.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll hear back from the rebuttal from the agent. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Charavati before we move on to the next speaker?
I had a few questions that I called the building department.
No, sir.
regarding-
Sir. I'm asking if the members have any questions for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me.
Yeah, no. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Chervati, or we'll hear from the neighbor at 16 6th Street? Okay. So we have that neighbor, I guess, is on the street that the property backs onto, and sort of on the side. Lakeshore is behind. Okay, so is Jasmine Doe with us?
It's Dew, as in Winnie the Pooh. Dew.
Okay.
Yes, I am here. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm.
And I'm looking to see where you are on our location map. I guess 6th Street is on the side, so it's sort of like a key lot situation.
Yes, our property lines are connected. Our fence. We have a fence.
Right.
I have a corner
Yep.
lot, and the fence is on both of our properties, I guess.
Right. Okay, and we have a letter from your neighbor at 6th Street as well. That's opposition letter number 1. So the floor is yours to advise the committee members as to what your concerns are.
Yes.
So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity today. I'm not sure I was very clear on the changes that the applicant was talking to you about earlier. I didn't quite understand that. So would it be all right if I just read what I'd sort of written? If that's all
Absolutely.
right. Thank you very much. Okay, so I've just written something out here. So good morning, everyone, and members of the committee. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to comment on the plans regarding the construction application to 35 Emerald Street. My name is Jasmine Dew, and I live at the property bordering the applicant's property on the west side at 16 6th Street. And I have a corner lot, and we share a fence to the west side of my property and the east side of theirs. My concerns are largely around access to the backyard and the extension in the front towards the street, which will impact my willow tree, which is almost virtually at the property line. So I would like to speak to section 10, 20, 40, 73, bylaw 569-2013. Their request to build closer to my property line, asking to overrule the minimum required side yard setback, which is currently 0.9 meters, I believe is not a minor variance. Currently, there is just enough room to walk to the back of the property. The changes that the applicant is asking for, reducing the minimum required setback of 0.9 to half that, which is 0.46 meters, leaves limited room to access the back of the property. If the owner ever decided to make a garden suite, this would limit access to the back of the property. But my biggest concern, though, is my huge willow tree, which is very close to the property line. It's the reason I bought this property many years ago. The applicant just bought this property this past summer. Increasing the size of the building structure so close to my willow tree would seriously damage the willow radius root system and possibly kill the huge tree. The root radius for willow trees, particularly mine, which is large, I believe it's tree number 2 on the diagram. I'm not sure. I don't read those well, but your urban forestry department can confirm that. And there's another tree as well, just next to it. I just went out this morning to look at the tree trunk to see how close it is to the applicant's property. Part of the trunk is just short of an inch to the east of the property line. I think it's almost on it. And that's the trunk of the tree. The other side of the willow tree trunk is 3 inches from the property line. It is a huge tree. The trunk is 27 inches across in the section where it branches out. I believe that it's not a minor variance from their east property line. It's much too close to my willow tree radius. The adverse effect of granting them a request would have an adverse effect on my property and possibly kill my willow tree. This is my biggest concern. I don't mind the applicant increasing the floor space, footprint, or building higher. Maybe they go in the back more, just not so close to my willow tree. My other concern, and they're all related sections, is section 10, 20, 40, 70, bylaw 569-2013. The minimum front yard
Just
setback.
tell us what variance number it is, rather than the long.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what the number.
That's okay. Which
I
is
just-
what variance is
It
it?
says bylaw 569-2013, or is that it?
No, it was the one you already talked about, variance 3, which was the location in the east side setback at 0.9, which is 0.46.
Okay, I'm
And now
sorry.
you're about to talk about which other variance? Which
It's the
section
one
number?
just beneath it. These are the
Oh,
numbers
the
I got
platform, the
from your
proposed front
form.
platform will
Sorry.
encroach 4.18 into the
Yes.
required front yard setback.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
okay. And you have
Okay.
seen the planning report, have you not? You've seen the planning report, and have they
I
discussed
looked
these?
at it. I'm a layman, so I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure. Anyway,
Okay.
could I just read it? Then I
Yeah,
won't,
please
I won't even
continue.
mention these little things that I copied from your paper. The applicant is requesting to reduce the front yard setback by 3 meters to 5.84 meters from the front lot line. This property on Emerald Crescent is the last of several houses on a curve. There is no sidewalk. The frontages of all these houses is staggered so that the property front staggered in a curved circumference. This request to build closer to the middle of the road would be by 3 meters, and it would make this property jut too far out, breaking the designed curved circumference of the house frontages out too close to the middle of the road. It would be out of place, out of character, an aberration, and ruin the staggered sequence of the houses. Again, mostly my concern though is it would also bring the whole front of the property and the build and the foundation closer to my willow tree. I would have no problem again going them with having them go back. And I guess just the last part again is still again pertaining to the setback that with the second story window again, it would just increase the frontage and ruin the curve of the properties. My biggest concern though is that all of the building going close to my property line and out far in front, literally my tree bark is almost on their property line, my willow. It's huge and I don't think you can really see it. So that's my biggest
Okay,
concern.
thank you. You're out of time. But I'll point out to the members and to you, we have a forestry report. They were requesting deferral of this application. They identified 3 trees, 2 being city-owned, a city-owned linden, 35 centimeters, a city-owned hedge maple tree, 50 centimeters, and then Miss Dew's privately owned willow, measuring 92 centimeters in diameter. They were looking for a deferral until such time as the applicant could provide them with confirm which of those trees can be adequately protected. And they say, if not, then we should make a condition of conditions 2 and 4. So they have identified Miss Dew's tree, and let's hear back from the applicant or the agent rather in response to the concerns of Mr. Chervati and Ms. Dew, both affected neighbors. And I guess the issue is whether we consider first, Madam Secretary Treasurer, the deferral request from Urban Forestry, or perhaps let's hear back from, before we consider, if that's something one of the members wants to consider, whether the agent can give us some comfort that they were working with, because I don't see an arborist report here. Okay, so let's go back to Ms. Ajvand.
Yes, it's Mozaffari here. Thank you. I want to thank our neighbors for sharing their concerns. Actually, we had an opportunity to talk with our best neighbor. My clients did talk to him and his wife about their concerns of having access from the west side setback. I should mention that the east setback is the result of the existing condition. There is a existing driveway and parking pad on the east side, and we are proposing an enclosed garage. One side of this garage is the existing wall, which we cannot move because of the complication of moving the foundation walls, demolishing half of the basement and everything. So one side of the garage is fixed, and then the inside dimension of the garage is the minimum acceptable for the parking. So we end up to having a limited side setback on the east, and it's only for the garage portion. It blocks the access on the east side setback, but the house has deck and access from family room and kitchen to the deck and rear yard. So none of the side yards will be used for accessing the rear yard. On the other hand, the west setback is the same as existing. We are not touching anything on that side, and it's more than required. The required is 3 feet, and this is 3 feet 7 inches. And there is a side door there because my client wants to live in this house with their in-laws, and there is a secondary unit in the basement for the in-laws family, and they want to have independent access so they don't interfere with the life of my clients that much. So this is side access to the basement, and there is another access to the basement. There is a walkout in the rear yard, so it's not the only access. And my client also has offered to put up a fence there on the property line to provide privacy for the west neighbor, but it didn't seem to be appealing to them, so they didn't accept the offer so far, at least. And for the tree on the property line, about the concerns of the east neighbor, we are not removing any of those trees. We are, as I said, the variance for the front setback is eliminated. We are keeping the front setback and the existing front wall. So nothing in the street escape and the street view will be changed. And the sequence of these houses on the street will maintain the same. And we won't remove any of those trees. From that big tree to the corner of the garage, there is 3 meter distance, which is a huge protection zone for the tree. And the existing driveway is also on the same spot. So we are doing minimum changes there. Good point is that having this garage there, we only need a shallow foundation wall, so the depth of the digging is not that much. So we can make sure that we won't remove any of those trees. Also, for the forestry, there are 2 reports. One is for the forestry condition, and in the second one, forestry asked for deferral. We already have submitted the arborist report and protection plan and every required document to the forestry. We already have submitted our application, and we are absolutely okay if you put a condition for forestry. For sure, we should do. We should go through the proper process to get their approval. The only tree that we should remove is in our own backyard. It's a private owned tree that will be removed because of the walkout, but it's in the limitation of the allowed building length and depth. So it's a sad point that we should remove that, but we are going through the appropriate process and application with the forestry, and the rest of the trees will be saved at the front.
Okay, so you're saying there is 3 trees identified in the forestry report. 2 are city-owned trees on your property, the linden and the maple bush, and then the neighbor's tree, the willow tree at the rear. They're all three, but you're saying you're content with conditions that urban forestry is requesting conditions 2 and 4, and you're saying now that your intent is to protect these trees and not have them removed or injured.
Yes, for sure, because as I said, even the existing driveway is in the same location that we are proposing the driveway, so we are not going to remove any of these trees, and we already have submitted our application to the forestry.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see the clock, but I think your time must be up. Unless you'd like to wrap up and just say a few words, and then we'll see if committee members have any further follow-up questions or someone's ready to weigh in with a motion. So you're good?
I just wanted a clarification of the applicant, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The setback on the east side, south of the garage, what is your setback there? Is it in compliance? But I couldn't quite get it. That's okay.
Yeah, if you do the math on the site plan, there is a dimension that shows the garage projection, which is 1 foot 6 inches, and the side setback is also 1 foot 6 inches. So the total is 3 feet, which is 90 centimeter as required.
Perfect. That's what I just wanted to clarify that. So you would not have a problem with us tying the approval of that variance to that site plan then?
Not at all. Yeah.
Okay, and the location of the proposed location of the garage on the east side is the same as the current carport, is that correct?
Yes, it is, but the current one is not. It's not enclosed. It's like a parking pad, just
Right.
like.
So it has no foundations. It's just
Yes.
yeah. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Two sides of that is the walls of the existing house, and two other sides are just open. And
Yeah.
we are
Understood.
those two.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
I'm ready to weigh in with the motion. I find the application to meet the 4 tests, and would therefore like to move approval, subject to a couple of conditions. Forestry condition 2, to protect private trees. Forestry condition 4 is for deferral, so I don't think there's nothing to tag to that.
Okay.
I'd also like to make the approval subject to the site plan that's been submitted with respect to, as it pertains to the east side setback. So that that variance is being granted for the garage portion only, not for the full length of the proposed home.
Right, and I think that's what community planning points out in their memo, that it goes back out. So it's probably prudent. I'm surprised that they didn't recommend it be tied to the plan. So thank you for that motion. And as we have a seconder for Mr. Kumarik's motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor?
Sorry.
Let Mr. Taylor.
Before we do that?
Yeah.
I have a question, probably of staff, regarding forestry. They sent a memo in January adding condition 1, which deals with city-owned trees. And of course, in their consolidated memo 3 weeks later, they didn't mention condition 1. Do we rely on the consolidated memo and disregard condition 1?
No, because they refer to item 4. It goes back to that original memo, so it should be conditions for private tree and city-owned tree.
Okay, so if I could make, I would second the motion with a friendly amendment to include urban forestry condition 1 as well.
Okay, good catch. Mr. Kumarik, I assume that's acceptable?
Absolutely.
Okay, all in favor? For the revised motion. Okay, it's unanimous. You have your approval. Thank you, neighbors, and thank you to the agent as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Ajvan, thank you. Okay, looks like we have a next application, looks pretty straightforward. It is number 6, 112 7th Street. And it's an application to construct a storage shed in the rear yard. We have one variance, the coverage of 11.5, whereas 10% is permitted. We have a previous decision from 2017. It's unrelated, and that's all we have. The speaker is Mark Lilly, agent.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Mark Lilly, and I'm the agent for the owner at 112 7th Street.
Okay, we have absolutely nothing on this application. Very straightforward. Is there anything you'd like to point out before I see if anyone has any questions or if someone's ready to bring a motion?
Nothing specific. We're just 1.5 over the lot coverage, so.
Yep, that's all you have. Okay. Members, any questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion. Mishi McCloskey. I move to approve the application, consider it very minor in nature.
Thank you.
The protest.
Thank you. Seconder for that. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. You have your approval. Thank you, Mr. Lilly.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next application is item number 7, 172 5th Street. It's an application to construct a 2-story rear addition. There are 3 variances. We have concerns from 171 6th Street, something about a shared laneway, and that's all we have on this application. The speaker is Derek Lay, the agent for the applicant.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Derek. I'm representing the owners at 172 5th Street.
Okay. So a very straightforward application. All we have is this opposition letter. We don't have anyone registered to speak. So what can you tell us about this? The shared laneway, and they're concerned about, I don't know, a laneway, or it looks like access issues. Okay, so that doesn't look like really planning issues. I don't know if you're aware of that letter, however.
Yes, I'm aware of that letter, and there are no zoning deficiencies for the laneway house, and these are mainly construction issues that will be addressed during construction of the laneway house.
Fair enough. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Lay, or is someone ready for a motion?
I have a quick question, Mr. Chair, if I may. With regards to variance 3, with the 0 clearance for the eaves, is that an existing situation?
Right, so right now, currently, the eaves are at the lot line already, and the extension is mainly continuing that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I find the variances to be in keeping with the 4 tests, and I move approval of the conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that. Mr. Komarek, thank you. All in favor? Another unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Lay, and you have your approval unconditional. Okay, item number 8, we'll do that, and then we'll have a break. We'll be halfway through the morning agenda. So the next application is 45 ARCHERHILL Drive. It's an application to construct a 1-story front and rear additions and a 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling. We have a revised yellow notice sheet proceeding by waiver and revised plans. They've now eliminated the coverage variance number 1, and reduced the FSI variance from 0.65 to 0.58. The other 2 variances remain unchanged. We have the revised plans. We have planning response to the revisions. Planning has advised that they are now fine. No concerns with the revised variances. 2 letters of support from 31 and 66 ARCHERHILL. And that's all we have. The speaker, we have a couple of speakers on this. The applicant or agent is Tony Tersini, as well as we have the neighbors from 72 and 70 Archer Hill Drive.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, the neighbors at
Yes.
72 and 70 will also not be participating today. We contacted them. and
Okay.
That's what we found out.
Right. It didn't look like how far away they were to 45, even though even the reference, the two letters of support seem further afield, 31 and 66, but I haven't taken a closer look at the location map. But okay, so we have only one speaker. So let's go to Mr. Tersini.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm the acting agent for this proposal. And I just like to say we worked hard with the neighbors and with planning to get everybody's approval. And I believe it's a minor variance, and I think it will be in keeping with the neighborhood, and it'll be a good project for the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Tersini, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Kamarick?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
yeah, I find the variances to be minor and meeting the 4 tests, and I would therefore like to propose approval with no conditions.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for that motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. And first, all in favor? Another unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Tersini. Thank you, members. So with everyone's permission, let's take a 10-minute break to 11:15. And we'll see you back here, and then we'll proceed with the remaining other half of the morning agenda, starting with item number 9. Okay, hello, is everyone back? Okay, and you can hear me? My thing didn't go its normal indication I'm connected. Okay, so we're on to item number 9. Number 9 is 4 Torrington Drive. It's an application to construct a 2-story subside addition and a 2nd story above the existing dwelling. There are 4 variances. We have a cover letter, 3 letters of support, 1 letter of opposition from number 2 next door. In the additional materials, we have a daughter of the an adjacent neighbor, number 6, who advised they wanted to weigh in, and they are with us. So we have 4 speakers on this application. Firstly, the agent, Tatjana Pejovic, and then the neighbors from 2 and 6 Torrington, and then the neighbor from 260 Wellsworth Drive. So this is, as I stated, we have, that's all we have. We don't have any other information, no conditions from community planning or from urban forestry or anything else. So let's go to Ms. Pejovic. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tatjana Pejovic, and I am the agent for the owners of the property at 4 Torrington Drive. After submitting plans for a zoning review, we received a zoning notice in which are identified variances in respect to floor space index, height of the main walls, and the height of the first floor. I would mention that the height of the main floor is actually a level of the existing ground floor. The new extension behind the existing garage, which squares off the shape of the house, has a ground floor level at the same level, and it is even with the existing floor. The addition is proposed with keeping the basement floor and the ground floor at the existing levels. Since the level of the main floor is unchanged and slightly higher than the required zoning, starting from this level with the proposed heights of the ground and second floor, the overall height of the main walls result in the dimension exceeded for 30 centimeters. I would mention that at the same time, the overall building height is not exceeded. The proposed top of the roof is lower than the maximum permitted height by zoning bylaw. During the stage of design, we shaped the house in a way that it remains with the same length and with the same width as it is now. The side setbacks are unchanged and they are larger than the required minimum. The proposed coverage is also lower than a maximum permitted. We tried to provide more information and explanation in supporting document which was uploaded on the website. The owners of the property 4 Torrington Drive had also communication with the neighbors, and they received 3 letters of support. We are aware of the sent letters of objection and the conveyed concerns. I would also like to address the concerns expressed in the received letters of objection. The existing side setback toward the property at 2 Torrington Drive is 2 meters and 34 centimeters, or 2.24 at the corner due to applied stone veneer. This setback is increasing to 4 meters and 17 centimeters at the back, which is significantly more than 4 feet, which is permitted. The house remains with the unchanged length, and the proposed second floor is added on top, and we would mention that the overall height of the house is not exceeded. The existing setback toward the lot at 6 Torrington Drive is 127 meters, or proposed at the corner 121 due to stone application at the very corner point. This existing setback remains the same along the length of the existing and the part of the proposed side wall, which is in line with the existing. This setback doesn't exceed the permitted minimum of 1.20 meters, and at the same time, the building height is also not exceeded. We tried during the course of design to shape the house in a way to keep the crucial features like setbacks, building height, coverage in its boundaries of the zoning requirements, and in that way respectfully relate to the proposed addition toward the neighboring properties. We hope that the proposed variances can be considered as a minor and that we can have your approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pejovic. Any questions for the agent before we go on to the neighbors at this point? You'll obviously have a chance to ask questions at the end as well. So if there is none, we have the neighbor at 2 Torrington Drive right next door. There are 2 names listed. We only have 1 speaker. I'd also like to point out while we were speaking that the applicant's present cover letter is actually has some drawings and presentation materials in that. And we do have the next speaker, we do have their letter. It's shown as the opposition letter. It didn't have a name, but it looks like that's their letter, the neighbor who wrote in. So who are we hearing from? Either Jose Sandoval or Hila Bonk?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Jose, and I'm speaking on behalf of my mother-in-law, Halia Bonk, at 2 Torrington Drive. So our concern is that if our neighbor's variance gets approval, then we're not going to have sun exposure for most part of the day. It's simple as that. You see, our property is a corner lot. We don't have a proper backyard. It's actually a side yard that is located to the east of 4 Torrington Drive. And it's not a big piece of land, but it's all we have to spend our time outside when the weather is kind. My mother-in-law, Alia, who is 79 years old, has spent almost 30 years cultivating our sustainable garden. We have berries and we have all kinds of vegetables. We also have a beautiful apple tree. Now, to be honest, we are afraid that it's going to be affected negatively given the dimension for the variance next door, including the height. I believe they're talking about 10 meters and change. I'm not sure that is included the roof. It also seems that they want to get 30 centimeters over the permitted height. You know, quite frankly, it looks like a big project that is going to block sunlight to our side yard. There is also a proposal to build a deck close to our property line. That definitely will affect our privacy to our property. You see, this is the other piece of land we have to spend our time outside. We don't have a proper backyard like everybody else has around. And quite frankly, my wife and I are highly concerned about my mother-in-law mental and physical health, as she is in distress for the whole thing. So I would appreciate if you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the committee, you know, take all this into consideration before making a final decision.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions, members, for the speaker next door? Okay, if not, then we'll go back to the next speaker, the neighbor at 6 Torrington Drive on the other side, Midori Fava.
Hi, good
Welcome.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm the daughter of the owner of 6 Torrington Drive, and I'm representing my father and my siblings. So I should just say that my father is in his 99th year, and he's been living at 6 Torrington Drive for close to 50 years. And the issue we have is that at the moment, the side of the house, so my dad is on the west side of number 4, and his kitchen is on the east side. So right now, he has 2 kitchen windows, and my dad enjoys, you know, all the sunlight that comes in from there. But with the build, he will just have a solid wall from the beginning of the garage right to the back. So at the moment, what he sees is the side of the garage, but when the garage ends, the garage indents the whole width of the garage, and then the house continues. So number 4, the variance would mean that he's going to bring the back of the garage, and it will be flush with the garage now, and it will go all the way to the back. So my dad will lose all that, you know, the view of the sky, the sunlight. There will be none, because I checked yesterday, and there would be no light coming in from that side of the house. So that's the concern for him. And as I said, I'm speaking on behalf of my siblings as well.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fava. Any questions for the speaker, or we'll go to the last speaker, the last neighbor, 260 Wellsworth Drive. Michael Mick.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we tried to reach him, but there was no answer. And I did see him on the WebEx earlier, but now they're not there.
Okay. Okay, so then let's go back to the agent, Ms. Pejovic, for her rebuttal to the two neighbors, adjacent neighbors who spoke. I know you already dealt with some of it anticipatorily in your presentation, but you have another 5 minutes to rebut and respond to the concerns of the neighbor.
Thank
neighbors.
you. I would mention also that during the course of design, we really paid attention to the setbacks, house height, and the coverage and the mass. In the proposed design, these features are not exceeded, and they are within the boundary of the permitted values. We believe that it is important in establishing a positive spatial relation of the proposed structure towards neighboring properties in a way as it is defined in zoning criteria. We would note that the house is not closer to the property lines and the overall height of the building is not exceeded. My clients also reached by telephone and by note, putting note in the mail for the neighbor at the property number 6, wishing communication with the neighbors and wishing to explain directly the variances that are proposed. The matter with the windows, I would mention and emphasize that we have established side setback, which is not variance at this in this proposal, and those two walls between the existing garage and between the existing house at the number 6 are already established. So that setback is going to be continued with a part of the new wall, which is at the back of the house. At the same time, the house is the same, keeping the same length and the same width. The coverage is smaller than it is permitted. And the height, I would also emphasize, maybe there is some confusion regarding the height, because we, in the list of variances, we have the height of the main wall, but the height of the building is not exceeded. So it is permitted to have the house, which is up to 9 meters and 50 centimeters to the top of the roof. And the overall building height is in fact 944. So the overall mass of the house is not an issue according to zoning review and analysis. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Pejovic or any of the neighbors, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. This is an excellent example of a situation where we have to consider and assess the impact of a proposal relative to what is permitted as of right. It's not so much the difference between what is being built and what is there now. It's the difference between what's proposed relative to as of right. And in this case, as the agent pointed out, the building is being built entirely within the approved building envelope. There are no building height variances. And again, relative to as of right, what's proposed really has no impact. So I'm going to move approval, and that approval would be without conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Everyone's hand went up at once. Mishi Matlowski, all in favor? It's unanimous. The application is approved without conditions. Thank you to the neighbors. Thank you, Ms. Pejovic.
Thank you also.
Okay, our next application is item number 10, 15 FENMAR Drive. It's an application to construct a new building. There are 3 variances, and planning has 2 conditions of approval. Transportation has no objection, and that's all we have. Speaker for this application is David McKay. Okay.
Yes. Good. Good
Welcome,
morning.
sir.
Good
morning.
Good morning. It's not the afternoon yet.
Yeah.
Yes, it's David McKay from MHBC Planning. I'm the planner for the applicant.
Okay, very straightforward application. This is an industrial property, industrial zone. That's the nature of the building. And you're okay with the planning conditions of approval?
I'm not, sir.
Okay.
The concern we have, as noted in the staff report, they're supportive of the use. They say it meets the 4 tests, as I do.
Right. Yeah, yeah. This is a 5-year.
However,
Yeah.
they put in a 5-year condition. My client's making millions of dollars of investments into this property, and at the end of the day, the committee can decide, as planning has, as I have, that this use is appropriate given the nature of it. That is permanency until the city changes its bylaw, if they choose to do so. I do note that the issue here is the way software development and processing is defined in the new bylaw, and then that includes the storage of electronic data. The intent of that, that provision, really, it also involves office types uses for the software development. That's not what's happening here. It's the storage of that electronic data. So it's an issue of how the bylaw department
defines it,
define the use versus an actual planning matter or issue of concern. If city staff wishes to amend the bylaw to clarify this use in the future, I'm happy that they can do that, but it should not be on the expense of my client and the uncertainty of their multi-million-dollar investment.
Yes.
Tied to a 5-year conditional period, especially when there's no impacts.
Right. So basically, you're saying it's a storage. It's not, in terms of strictly speaking, that definition. The storage would make it more within the bylaw, but in order for the 5-year would, certainly make, in terms of the investment being undertaken in this, which you say is in the millions of dollars, they may not be able to do that for a 5-year period with that uncertainty hanging over the head. So let's see what committee members have any questions or what they feel about that condition. And I see transportation has no problem, no issue, and they don't talk about taking a look-see for 5 years. So
correct.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Stan Komarek, I also have a concern about the second condition that planning is imposing. I don't understand that condition. Like, how can we impose a condition to amend the zoning bylaw?
Yeah.
And that is part of my concerns with the 2 conditions. It's forcing my client to make those investments, go in for 5 years, presumably either wait for the city to initiate an amendment on their own, or for my client to spend another several $100,000 in processing something that staff have agreed is appropriate on this site.
Yeah. Okay.
It's nonsensical,
that is,
and I wish the committee to approve the variances without those conditions.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, I did ask planning about the conditions, and it's not an expectation that the city would initiate it. It would be for the applicant to apply for a rezoning to permit this use, and
that's an item number 2. So you're saying, well, we're going to give you the variance, but then we want you to go ahead and proceed as if there wasn't a variance at that expense. And in the meantime, well, if we change the bylaw that we feel this doesn't fit in, because Mr. Mackay said it's more or less the storage and not the development and processing use per se. So I take that to, and you're saying the investment by your client is to build this building and to build to suit this particular use.
Yes, they are a data center user. With clients like Microsoft, Uber, and the federal government for storage of data. It's the building itself is fairly straightforward. It's a big building.
Yeah, we don't.
I think, and with basically computers sitting there, just
right.
storing
And
data.
I know none of the neighbors have weighed in with any concerns or anything
Not
of
at
that
all.
nature. Okay.
Not at all.
Okay, committee members, looking for a motion, and the applicant is asking that we not tie it to the conditions, and that condition 2 in particular is something saying, well, we're going to give it to you, but you have to proceed, or you're not going to. It just seems a little, in my mind, a little bit odd. So is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I find the application to be very reasonable, and that the 4 tests under the Planning Act are met. I find the conditions requested by the Community Planning Department are unreasonable, and I move approval without conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconded for that motion, Mr. Komarek. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimously approved. The application is approved without the planning recommended planning conditions.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mr. McKay.
Appreciate your reasonableness.
Okay, good luck. But how big is that building, by the way, in square feet?
It'd be I believe it's just under 200,000 square feet.
Okay, it's a big building, creates some employment. I don't know how much, but
and
all
lots
good.
of lots of electricity use. That's why they're building next to the
Exactly.
hydro substation. So
Thank you. Okay.
thanks again. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Our next application is item number 11, 55 Edge Hill Road. And this is an application to a partial second story addition with 6 variances. We have a previous decision from December 2008 about a circular driveway was obtained at that time. We have a covering letter. Ravines and Natural Feature Protection confirms that no permit is required, and Ravines confirms that there's no condition. And there's some talk about TRCA confirming the stable top of bank. Perhaps we can hear from the agent on that. And the agent, the speakers on this application is, we only have one, the agent Anthony Gornick, agent for the applicant. Welcome, Mr. Gornick.
Thank you. Anthony Gornick here, agent for 55 Edge Hill. The entire submission is related to a small second story addition over an existing rear yard structure. The existing structure houses the kitchen table area, and there's a balcony off the master bedroom that's currently there. The entire design is creating 3 walls and extending the roof over top an existing balcony. I have had discussions with TRCA. The long-term stable top of bank was delineated originally in 2008 when I submitted this project on the owner's behalf, and that line is still there. So there's no excavation related to the work, and all the governing bodies seem to be in agreement with our application, except for these variances, which we seek today.
Okay. Okay, members, any questions for Mr. Gornick, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I find the variances to meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval without conditions.
Thank you, sir. Seconder for that. Mr. Komarek, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Gornick.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is item number 12, 2893 Bloor Street West. It's an application to permit a parking deficiency. There's one variance, minimum 6 required, total of 1 provided. The agent is Angus Skeen. It's the only speaker. We have the 1 variance. We have a letter of opposition from 2887 Bloor. We have revised plans without any change to the variances. We have a copy of the site-specific zoning bylaw. And we have some planning has reviewed the revisions and is supportive of the changes. So I think there were some changes. They didn't affect the variances, but planning has advised they're okay with that. Mr. Skeen, welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm Angus Skeen. I'm the architect and agent for this application.
Okay.
I could do one of 2 things. Perhaps what I'll speak to first is planning, and then I'll speak to the variance itself. So I was contacted by Daniel at planning just a few weeks ago. The requests they made were actually to do with the front facade of the building primarily. They asked if it could be changed to brick. They asked if it could step back at a cornice line at the 2nd floor, and all of that was fine. And they asked for privacy screens on the rear decks that are facing the residential zone to the south. So we did that. And they actually asked for an additional skylight, and we did that. So in other words, their requests were so easy that that's a sort of happy ending to that story. The variance here, it's a remarkable thing. And I don't know if you're following, City Council just reduced the parking requirements in new condominium projects.
Mhm.
This is a 2003 site-specific variance. If you look at our lot frontage, we're like a 4-meter wide lot. And I think I submitted a little one-page thing with an aerial photo that shows you, these are all little slots of land. And the 2003 bylaw assigns parking at 2 spaces for every 93 square meters of commercial space. So given our situation, we end up being requested to provide 6 parking spaces as a result of adding an office space. Now, you can only fit 1 car legally under the zoning bylaw on this lot because zoning doesn't respect bumper-to-bumper zoning or bumper-to-bumper parking. So you can just imagine, I can't even get 2 legally onto this lot, let alone 6. And the further you go into the 2003 bylaw, it begins speaking of lot frontages of 24 meters, building heights of 6 stories. I think it's essentially intended for a land assembly. There's a condo down the street where that happened, and that makes a lot more sense. But I think on these narrow lots, it's just, I think it genuinely is a variance condition. I request a variance simply because the blunt rule of the bylaw doesn't apply very well to this property. And having said that, regardless, there's a report from Transportation, and I spoke to Ashmead at Transportation. They're recommending that we pay a cash in lieu. I would request that you not respect that request of theirs, and for 2 reasons. First is I think the city is moving away from parking, and I think that was proved by the recent city council decision. But more pragmatically, there are 4 green pea parking lots on the north side of Bloor, just across from this property. Now, the reason they're on the north side and not the south is because they're on the subway right of way, just like all the green peas through the downtown. They sit, you know, above city land on the subway right of way. They certainly provide ample public parking for the users of Bloor Street West in this area. So I would request that if you see fit to approve the variance, that you don't ask us to pay the cash in lieu. I think it's prejudicial. It also opens all the uncertainty of we need to take that to community council, and even Ashmead at Transportation wasn't able to tell us quite what the amounts would be, and he was incorrect even on how it's calculated. So I think this was a stock report applied to this application. On top of that, I'd just like to say also, this is it's on the subway line. This is a mass transit route, and it's also on the Bloor Street bicycle path. So I just really think the issue of the parking is a 20-year-old idea that no longer applies very well to these narrow frontage lots. And I'm happy to field any questions about it, but I could maybe close with just addressing the concern of a neighbor at 2887. So that's 3 doors away to the east. Unfortunately, the person who submitted it, Miss Palanika, didn't supply an email, or I would have happily reached out to her to address any questions, but I was unable to do so. I think scanning the letter, she has genuine concerns about parking in the rear alley. I don't doubt that's true. I think that's an existing condition, perhaps. She has concerns about disruption due to construction. I think that's reasonable. These are all beyond what we're talking about today. She asks if a 3-story building can even be permitted, and of course this bylaw permits 6 stories. So I would have been happy to address all of these issues, but I wasn't able to do so. I would certainly be happy if she's attending today to answer any questions.
Okay, Mr. Skeen, thank you. You're the only one in town here.
Okay.
Question for staff. Do we have authority to not provide cash in lieu, or is that something that have to go with either transportation or council? What's our role here?
The difficulty is you should do, not the committee, but in principle, it's either a parking variance or cash in lieu. To do both, they're paying for 2 processes that are unnecessary. In terms of the comments about having the green P, the point of cash in lieu is to pay for the green P.
Yes.
So that doesn't really jive, but in terms, like, there shouldn't be a variance for parking and then a condition to apply for cash in lieu, because it's either or.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, is any further questions for Mr. Skeen, or someone ready for a motion?
I just wanted to point out one correction. The Bloor bicycle does not extend to this part of Bloor Street yet. just a point of clarification. And I wanted to mention about the cash in lieu actually pays for development of that off-site parking.
It allows the city to use the money to buy
To acquire other, yeah.
other sites. It's on a citywide basis. Okay, is anyone ready for a motion? I guess the issue is whether, the only issue being the inclusion of the condition.
I think it's unfortunate that we don't know what the payment would be, but I'm assuming that there's some standard formula for that, so.
I believe it can be quite costly.
Yeah.
But we have no idea. We just heard what the Secretary Treasurer had to say.
Well, I'm prepared to move a motion for approval. I think, you know, everyone knows that the city is scrapped for housing, and this is going to help towards alleviating that to some minor little degree. And I think we should support all such proposals. Based on that, I'd like to move approval. And I'm going to go with no conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Komarek. Seconded for that motion. Mr. Taylor, thank you. Any comment? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, hold on. Unanimous approval. Okay, thank you, Mr. Skeen.
Thank
You have
you.
your approval with no condition. Next application, we've deferred 13, so we'll move over to number 14, 544 Rustic Road. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And there are 6 variances. We have an arborist report and urban forestry requesting condition under number 2, and otherwise nothing whatsoever on this application. The speaker is, when we have one speaker, Marta Sampao, the owner of the property. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Marta Sampaio. I'm the owner of 544 Rustic Road, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, yeah, we have we have 6 variances. We have no one's weighed in with any, no neighbors have weighed in with any concerns, no city departments, nothing from planning or transportation, nothing for, and we do have urban forestry, and we have your arborist report. So if anyone has any questions for the applicant, homeowner, Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I have a question. This is a new build, correct?
Correct.
Can you tell us why we should consider favorably the reductions in the minimum side yards, variance 2?
Yes. So initially, currently on the property is a bungalow, and initially when we started the drawings was to just extend the square footage to the back and just add the garage to the east. And what ended up happening was we discovered that the cost would be more than to just completely tear down and build. So to the west, we're not, we would leave the walls to the same distance from the road. And to the right, we basically designed it with keeping the same depth as the neighbor to the east. The only difference is slightly narrowing it down, because right now the garage is in the back and it's a tight squeeze to have the vehicle park in the back. And it would be easier for us to have it in the front, but still keeping a 4.11 width from the property line to the neighbor to the east. And it's in keeping with a lot of the new homes being built in the area. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Mr. Taylor, or anyone else have any other follow-up questions for the applicant? So I take it that's where the existing house, where the side yards were, so you're just, following suit. And there doesn't seem to be anyone in opposition. Neither of your neighbors have weighed in. Are there both neighbors, Jason, are aware of what you're doing here?
Yes,
Take it.
so yes, so even before applying to the Committee of Adjustments, but even right after, I did speak to the neighbors. They didn't have any issues. If anything, they were actually congratulating me and like asking me how I could afford the build. And I'm like, well, I work hard and I've been saving up. So that was the only comments that they had. Was really more concerned about affordability.
Okay, thank you. So members, is anyone ready for a motion? We have the urban forestry condition. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied that the variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 2.
Thank you. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you.
Sorry, can I
the
just add?
applicant.
Sorry.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention if you did receive the new forestry arborist report.
We had your arborist report, but we've already made a decision on this, so we really can't talk about it anymore. If you have any questions, please call staff tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much.
Much for your time.
Okay, congratulations, you have your approval.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is item number 15, 25 Golf Crest Road. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And there are 4 variances. We have a copy of the site-specific zoning bylaw, cover letter, arborist report, memo from forestry, and support from 22 Golf Crest. We have urban forestry requesting either a denial or a variance condition number 2. In the additional materials, we have 1 letter of support and 1 letter of opposition from 28 and 26 Orel, respectively. The additional materials. And the speaker on this application is Marin Zabzuni, as well as we have the neighbor from 23 Golf Crest Road right next door, registered to speak as well.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Marin Zabzuni at 1140 the Queensway.
Yes.
Okay, if I may proceed. So we are proposing a 2-story dwelling. We've worked closely with the clients to design this home while keeping in mind the existing neighborhood and evolving neighborhood. So we have submitted supporting material. This application is for a 2-story dwelling, and we have 4 variances, starting with gross floor area, or FSI. So the maximum floor area is 324 meters squared, which is determined by the following calculations: lot area times 0.25% of the lot plus 150 meters squared. So essentially, the proposed floor area that we're proposing is 386.77 meters squared. And when put into the same formula to determine the max GFA, the equation is essentially lot area times 0.34 plus 150 meters squared. Gross area in this zone includes the proposed interior living area on both the ground and second floor, as well as the open to below areas and the proposed garage area. So this does include the garage on the variance. So the garage in this dwelling accounts for 38.78 meters squared. The open to below area accounts for 7.8 meters squared. So under a typical GFA calculation, the proposed actual living space is only 340.19 meters squared. So the proposed design was developed in collaboration with our clients and developed specifically for their space requirements. While designing, our goal was to keep the design and size compatible with precedent set by similar houses in the community, as well as existing build forms. The proposed dwelling conforms with all setback requirements. The simplification we have outlined below what the maximum proposed FSI for the property after the equation. Maximum FSI equals 46.54 times the area, so we're proposing 55.56. So neighborhood is evolving, and this is reflected in similar variances approved, including 18 Golf Crest at 0.55.4, 22 Golf Crest at 0.56, 4 Golf Crest at 0.56, and 21 Golf Crest at 0.60. So it is our opinion that this variance is minor in nature and keeping with similar approvals in the neighborhood. In regards to building length, the proposed building length is 17.96 meter, where 17 is maximum allowed. So the building length is taken from the front main wall of the dwelling to rear main wall. For this proposed dwelling, the rear main wall is the rear face of the covered porch. This is because there is a living space excavated under the rear porch. We sent in an image on our supporting material, and where the purple line, if you do have it in front of you, if staff has seen it, essentially shows the length from front wall to the rear porch, and then the blue line essentially shows our actual building length, which is well below the maximum allowed. So what you see above grade essentially complies. This is more of a technical variance. The owner has spoken with neighbors. We have received letters of support, and we have sent in approved comparables that are even higher than what we've asked for. Planning has no concerns with the application, and we have also submitted an arborist report. We placed the pool in an area where we're trying to minimize any injury to rear trees, and we are proposing hoarding there. And we believe overall that the proposal is minor in nature and meets the 4 tests. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zabzuni. Any questions for the agent, or we'll hear from the next door neighbor, and you'll have a chance to obviously respond to that. So if there is no questions for Mr. Zabzuni, let's hear from Joanne Sabatino at 23 Golf Crest Road, right next door.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. My name is Joanne Sabatino. I live at 23 Golf Crest. I just wanted to express some concerns. I've lived through construction for the past 6 years and had some major catastrophes happen to my home because of it. So I just felt the need to just express my concerns on the grading of the property. I'm ignorant when looking at these plans. I just don't want it to affect the flooding of my home. And like I said, for the past 6 years, 21 Golf Crest was being built. I had about 30 feet of trees flooded and died. I had a tree that he cut go through my living room window. Anyways, my number one concern is the foundation of my property as well. So I'm all for the enhancement of the neighborhood. I love it. It's fantastic. It's just that I've already had issues with 25 Golf Crest eavesdrops, which I dealt with my neighbors at the time. So I'm just kind of expressing my concerns on how it's going to affect my home with regards to the grading of the property and so forth. Because like I said, I've already endured enough of flooding because of the homes being built. So I just don't want to be overpowered. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, the committee, we deal with the built form and planning issues. Those are obviously very valid concerns with respect to grading and construction, but it's beyond our purview, but certainly at the appropriate time, and you've had the experience with your neighbor on the other side. So hopefully the contractor will reach out to you and do all those wonderful things to keep neighbors cooperating. But at least Mr. Zabzuni is now aware of it, and he'll have a chance to respond to you, perhaps to give you some assurance that hopefully you're in for a better experience. And that's what life is in the big city. You have a lot of people, a lot of construction going on, front, back, behind, year after
I'm all
year
for
after
it. Like
year.
I said, it's just that when it starts to affect my foundation and my basement, it's
absolutely. So let's have Mr. Zabzuni respond to that to give you some comfort. But like I said, we deal with the built form and the planning issues.
No,
okay, Mr. Zabzuni.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Mr.
Hi
Zabzuni.
there. Yes, so that's a fair concern, of course, with grading and flooding, absolutely. One thing that will help or bring some comfort is the side yard setbacks for this proposed build, I believe, are improved compared to the existing dwelling. So we're set back further from neighbors. We're actually, compared to the setback from property line to proposed sidewalls on both sides, are even better than both neighbors from their existing walls to the property line. So that will help in terms of grading and making adjustments. Now, bear in mind that we will need a proposed grading plan during the building permit process. And the surveyor or engineer will propose that it needs to meet city requirements. Otherwise, the city will not approve the building permit or issue the permit. So that's part of the building process. But I hope that bears some comfort, and happy to have the owner speak with you during the build process. And when a builder is retained, I'm sure that they'll be accommodating. The owner is fairly diligent in these matters. So I hope that brings some comfort.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zabzuni. Any questions for Mr. Zabzuni or the neighbor, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Kamarick?
I find the application meets the 4 tests and is minor in nature, and would therefore like to move approval, subject to forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kamarick. I have a seconder for that motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Zabzumi, and thank you to the neighbor at 23. Okay. So now our last application of the morning session is 21 Grovetree Road. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with a secondary suite and an attached garage. There are 4 variances. We have supporting materials provided by the agent. We have a request from transportation to defer to make revisions, notations to the site plan drawings. And my question will be whether those revisions have been made, because that was a January 28th application. And lastly, we have urban forestry conditions 2 and 5, a denial or condition 2. And in the additional materials, we have a letter of opposition from Playdale Court, 1 Playdale Court, as well as we have ravines and natural feature protection advising us there are no conditions required as far as they're involved. So the one issue is the transportation. We'll hear from Mrs. Evangelista, the agent for the applicant on that, as well as we have the neighbor at 26 Grovetree registered to speak.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
So Mrs. Evangelista, welcome.
Good morning. On behalf of the owners of 21 Grovetree, the application, so I've submitted a package which outlines some of the variances. The variances relating to the length of the house takes us from the rear wall of the home to the front wall of the garage. We still align on the homes on the street, but you'll notice, and on my submission on page 3, you'll see that the house itself is 16.19 meters in length, and because the angle of the road, to the road, however, there are areas where it's 12 and 10.
Oops.
So let's.
Yeah, Mrs. Evangelista, you're sort of going in and out. We're losing some of what you're saying.
Okay, can you hear me now clearly?
Yeah, hopefully just continue. Yeah, continue.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So the issue is, I guess, if you can include whether these notations have been made as per transportation, following revisions made to the site plan, following notations must be included. First of all, my question is, has that been done? If it hasn't, why would we have to defer to that if we just made it a condition? That's my question. Why would we defer for these 2 conditions, or are these conditions acceptable? And please continue. I just wanted to try to cut to the chase here.
Okay, Sure, yeah, no problem. So relating to transportation, so even if you look at my subject property, the driveway exists. Nothing's changed. So the tree's going to be protected. The driveway, we're not uprooting the driveway. The size is exactly to what it is right now. It has a 2-car garage. We're going to remain at a 2-car garage. The driveway is going to stay in its existing current position. So, if committee would like us to reduce it to 6 meters, then that's fine. We're amenable to that. However, it's an existing driveway. We don't have to change the curb cut. We don't have to make any alterations. And, the owners, this is, a son and a daughter that are building this home for their parents so that they can live close together. They are elderly. They're actually keeping that width of the driveway and, in mind for future, for mobility purposes. So that's the reason for the width of the driveway, to leave it the way it is right now, and that's the 7 meters. However, if that's problematic with you, Mr. Chair, and the members, I will make that change and take it as a condition. Okay?
Oh, no. So I just noticed 2 things. So the transportation condition talks about 2 things. Part number 1 and number 2. So the one you're saying is the existing driveway. It doesn't need to be reduced to 6.0 meters. You don't want that condition, and tapering to 7.06 on private property only. You would be okay with the other one, just to have the curb cuts permits to the et cetera, in order to, for the closing up the burn. I just want to know what your position on that.
I would like to leave. I would like to leave the situation as it is. The curb cut is existing. Let's leave that, and even on the private right of way. But again, sorry, and I should have been a little clearer on that one. If we need to change that, and you would like us to change that on the private right of way, we would be open to that. I'm just asking if we can leave it as it is, in its current dimension, which is the 7 meters. But I will leave that up to you, Mr. Chair, and the members.
Well, it's up to the members. Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Right.
Glad you pointed that out, because it's not just a standard condition. It's something they wanted it to be tapered, and you've advised it's already existing, which is perhaps best to leave it the way it is. So we'll see if committee members have any issues. So please continue. Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to clarify that.
No worries. So we are asking for coverage of 34% for the house. For the house and the shed. So I know one of the letters, or the letter that I received, does make mention of the shed. So we are asking for a larger shed in the back, and that's to be able to store, he does spend a lot of time outside, come rain or shine. It's an area for him, to kind of, to go to. And it's mainly and mostly for outdoor storage, outdoor equipment, outdoor furniture, the barbecue, all of that, to keep that in, protected during the winter elements. So that's why we're asking for that shed. As for the tree with the previous owners, they had put it was a pine tree. It was an older, pine tree. It was below the 0.30, and as we know, this backs onto RNFP and TRCA, and they've provided no comments, no conditions. Sorry, RNFP anyways, for that matter. The forestry department doesn't make mention to that, because they were within their right to be able to cut down the tree, because once that tree house was removed, the tree itself was in structural decay near the lower portion. And again, as these are seniors living in this home, and with number 4 Playdale Court right behind, with their brand new shed, they didn't want to take any chances. And again, they did contact the proper channels, and they were within their right to have that tree removed. So in closing, what we're proposing here is, I respectfully submit that, it does meet the 4 tests. It is characteristic to the neighborhood. There are a lot of bungalows in this neighborhood. It's actually quite an eclectic mix of house styles and lot sizes. So I respectfully submit that what we are proposing does meet the 4 tests.
Okay, thank you,
I'm open
Mrs.
to any
Evangelista.
questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for the agent at this point, or we'll hear from the neighbor
Through you,
at
Mr.
26?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the neighbor will not be participating today.
Okay, so we do not have another speaker. Okay, Mr. Kamarick?
Yeah, I question why you need a 340 square foot plus shed to store a barbecue and patio furniture.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the owner, the gentleman that will be, he's an avid outdoor sportsman, so he has, you know, the ATV, he fishes, he's a hunter, so he has all those particular, you know, vehicles to store. Drive.
So it's vehicle. So you're talking about vehicle storage as opposed
to. It's not vehicle storage. It's all outdoor recreational amenities, along with furniture, barbecue. All so it's that size, just so that they have that opportunity to be able to store everything in a covered area. And it's also an area where he, because he does have a
She's
for
breaking
outdoors, and that'll, I'm breaking up again?
Yeah, I just want to repeat the last, go back.
Okay. He also has a dog that he uses that's for outdoors, and the dog remains outside. So he's also building a, you know, an area for his pup outside, because that's where he remains. That's the type of dog he is.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the site plan shows that the curb cut is being proposed to be widened. So transportation comments are relevant for the city portion of the site.
Okay.
But because on the on the survey,
There's 2 site plans. There's an existing one, and then there's a proposed one, and it shows proposed curb cut of 1.94 meters.
Then through you, Mr. Chair, we will take the 6 meter at the private right-of-way condition.
Okay. Oh, so they don't want it to be the 7.06. They want the curb cut to be, and I don't know if that helps with street parking or not, to provide more street on the curb on the street if there is parking on the street, but they want that reduced to 6.0 meters within the public right of way and at the property line. And then you can taper it at the 7.06 on the private property. So thank you, Ms. Bartosik, for that, to bring that to the attention of the members. Okay. Okay, so the condition is
yeah, because the survey shows otherwise, but that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll take the 6.
Does anyone have any
we'll
other
take that
questions?
condition.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions for Mrs. Evangelista, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Chair, I'm satisfied that the requested variances meet the 4 tests, and I move approval subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2. I say that because they're reporting out, urban forestry is reporting to us was in 2 forms. Their consolidated memo wherein they requested condition 2, and then a previous memo specific to this application where they requested condition 1. So it'd be subject to both 1 and 2, and also subject to transportation services. I'll call them conditions 1 and 2 as opposed to reasons for deferral.
Okay, thank you.
Transportation.
Okay, so we're in a motion, Mrs. Evangelista. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Sorry.
Do you have a seconder for that? Seconder for that motion, Ms. Reddick. Thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Ms. Evangelista. Thank you, members. And we are now adjourned until the afternoon session. Let's say we'll start at 1:15. 15 minutes, so we'll have an hour for if that's acceptable to staff. Madam Ms.
Yes, that
Bartosik,
works.
1:15 works for you and your staff? Thank you. Okay, we'll see everyone back here at 1:15 for the afternoon session. Thanks.